Hi. You might remember me from the last video. My name is Alex. My name is Alexander Williams, and I am lexwill. Tonight, special night between me and you. Every now and then, we get something that comes around, and it's called confirmation. Now, when we get, how do you open these things? When we get confirmation, we usually just broadcast, nothing special or anything. But tonight it's different. Oh yeah. Tonight's video is going to be very boring. So, if you're watching right now, I would suggest stop watching and listen instead, because it's going to be a listener. I'm going to be reading a lot. You all know I'm a horrible reader. My reading sounds like a man on his last breath gasping for air. So I would just, if you want to listen, turn it up. If you want to see the information that I'm bringing, I'm going to blow up the screen. You'll be able to see it, tell you where I'm at. You'll be able to chronicleize it if you want to. Print it out. You'll be able to use it. Tonight's episode, in its own little way, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I typed in the search engine. I finally got tired. I typed in the search engine, American Indians are Canaanites. And, just excited. Unbelievable. What this simple little sentence will do. I was going to say phrase, but simple little sentence will do. Yes. How do you get that back in? I used to have to shave these down to get them back in. Huh. I'm not going to shave that down. Here's to you, viewer. I think this is our 700th video. Is this 700 or 701? 1 second. Well, it's going to take me a minute to find out. Sorry. We should at least know which one we're doing, right? 700 or 701? Come on. So, it's doing what it wants. All right. $6.99. So this upload is going to be the 700th upload to the 700 Club. All right. Come on over. Here you see we have 699 videos. When this uploads, it's going to be 700. Alright, again, all I did was type in American Indians. The story of the Algonquin Indians. Okay? That's going to be the site that we're looking at. It says hopeofisrael.org Algonquin. Alright? If you're familiar with the Algonquin Indians, it is one of the Indian tribes of North America. Alright. I hope that's big enough. I hope I don't have to scroll back. Yep, no side scrolling. Good. Just up and down. Alright. So, story of Algonquin from Canaan to Connecticut. When Joshua invaded the Promised Land, he set in motion a powerful chain of events that would have far-reaching implications across the Atlantic and in North America. As his victorious army smashed Canaanite resistance, survivors of the onslaught fled southwest to North Africa and northwards to Anatolia. From these points, large migrations of Canaanite tribes were launched into Europe, British Isles, and thence into North America continent. The article tells the story of one group of Canaanites that found their way across Siberia and Bering Strait into the wild hinterland, not winterland, hinterland of what is now the United States and Canada. Now, this is this person's article. The information that they lay out, when it's from books, they leave those sources. I don't agree with everything in the article because at this point in time, I feel I know more. But what is in this article is a big key that we all need. Now it says, when Joshua, the son of Nun, which would be Hosea, we learn in Deuteronomy, Hosea, when he enters the Promised Land, which is the United States, it has nothing to do with the Levant. Now I'm going to read from this. I'm not going to correct this person's writing as I go. I'm just going to read from it, for the most part. Enter the Promised Land at the head of the children of Israel. He set about implementing the command of Jehovah God regarding the Canaanites in the land. It states, when the Lord your God brings you to the land that you are about to enter and possess, and he dislodges many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites. Now understand that all of these are bloodlines under the title Canaanite, and there is a main bloodline as well called Canaanites. So it's not a misprint. Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, 7 nations, much larger than you. And the Lord your God delivers them to you, and you defeat them. You must doom them to destruction. Grant them no terms, give them no quarter. This is what you shall do to them. You shall tear down their altars, smash their pillars, cut down their sacred posts, totem poles, and consign their images to fire. Consignment. You understand consignment? You put something on consignment. You take your goods to somebody else's store. They sell those goods for you. You get a price. Consign their images. Burn and record the burning of their images. You shall destroy all the peoples that the Lord God delivers you. Show them no pity. The Lord your God will dislodge those peoples before you little by little. You will not be able to put an end to them at once. Else, Because if you do put an end to them at once, the wild beast would multiply to hurt you. See, if they're all killed at once, then what they feed on will not be part of that food chain anymore. And those wild beasts that they feed on will devour you. The Lord your God will deliver them up to you, throwing them into utter panic until they are wiped out. He will deliver their kings into your hand. And this is at the time of Joshua and Moses. And you shall obliterate their name from under the heavens. We were supposed to erase them from history. And we failed to do so. Their name is not supposed to be known today because we failed to do so. Now it states, when Joshua and the Israelites crossed the Jordan River just north of the Dead Sea, they camped in Gilgal, then moved to take Jericho and Ai. Now, we can see Jericho is in Utah. It is right next to the mountains where they camped at. Afterwards, they returned to Gilgal. Joshua 1-8. After they destroyed those places, they returned to Gilgal. After making peace with Gibeon, Joshua led the Israelites through the valley of Ai. See Ai right there? Ai-jan. So it's by the city of Ai, it's the valley of Ai-jan, and defeated the 5 Amorite kings. From Makkedah, Joshua launched a southern campaign against Lachish, Hebron, Debir, and Gaza. Now remember, I showed you Mount Ephraim is in Vermont. This is telling you about Indians in Connecticut. Now watch. Now, remember Lachish, because Dan takes the land of Lachish because Dan is not happy with the amount of land that he's given. Later they will tell you who Lachish is. These are Indians. These are Canaanites. These are American Indians. Remember, Moses went up Mount Nebo, Mount Abarim. Those are here in Utah. That's where he died. That's where Joshua's campaign went forth from. That doesn't mean Joshua went on a boat to different lands. That means he continued on this soil and launched a southern campaign. Here on this soil, don't we have arguments of southern and northern with the Caucasians? Same situation. Those of the inhabitants who were not put to the sword by the Israelites fled into Egypt. Do I need to type in Egypt in America? Let's do it. I do not want anybody to think I'm just bullcrapping them, pulling their chain. This is a celebration night. We don't need to do this on YouTube. We need to do this on a regular search engine. Egypt in America. Alright, Egypt in America. Ancient Egyptians Grand Canyon. That's the first thing that comes up. This is the next thing that comes up. Second King of Egypt Empire in the United States. Video, evidence, and detailed pictures. Ancient Egypt in America. This doesn't mean a couple of Egyptians walked over and were discovered. Hey, 3 Egyptians in America. No, this means that they brought their whole civilization. This means when you go to Egypt and it looks like dust and it's been covered for thousands of years, they left thousands of years ago. The Egyptians were overthrown by the Greeks. Anybody ever hear of Cleopatra? When she died, her son took everybody. He took everybody. So, hey, we've been talking about the Smithsonian a lot, right? When the Smithsonian discovered an ancient discovered an ancient Egyptian colony in the Grand Canyon. So I'm gonna keep moving on the original thing, but you can always investigate that if you'd like. They fled to Egypt. So Egypt is here and sought refuge there. It says Samuel Purchas, in his book Relations of the World and the Religions Observed in All Ages, records this flight. Procopius affirms, this means he agrees, he concurs, that all the sea coast in those times from Sodom to Egypt was called Phoenicia. Excuse me. And when Joshua invaded them, remember Moses died in Utah. If I need to open the new computer I went and bought and bring up Google Maps so it works at a fast speed, and type in all the names that are listed in Deuteronomy 32 and all the names that are listed in Deuteronomy 34, and then you see those on Google Maps, you're going to be so mad you're going to be ready to fucking kill somebody. This is your spirituality. This is your inheritance. You have been lied to, being told it's on the other side of the world, so thieves can come in and take all your property and possessions. Not to mention you yourself. Procopius affirms that all the sea coast in those times, from Sodom to Egypt, Siddim to Egypt, isn't that the Tyre city? The king of Tyre city is Sidon. Poseidon. Isn't that been shown to you on that map? Even Horace Butler says that's the last country of South America before you get, of Central America before you get into South America. Phoenicia had to deal with Mexico. Alexander the Great makes the land barrier connecting what? South America to Mexico to Central America at the land of Sidon. Sidon, Egypt was called Phoenicia. And when Joshua invaded them, those who weren't killed, left their country and fled into Egypt. And this is in the book Relations of the World and Religions Observed in All Ages. This is book 1, chapter 18, page 85. After a victorious campaign, Joshua and the Israelites returned to Gilgal for a period of time, before launching any more campaigns against the Canaanites. The Canaanites, who fled the country, however, pushed further into Africa. Now, we already know the Canaanites left Africa. So what happened is they got on whatever boats remained and they left the old world, like I told you. They went back to where? They went back to Morocco. Like I told you, I didn't have this when I said those things. I didn't have this when those things came out of my mouth. I had the Treaty of Tripoli when I said those. I wasn't reading from the treaty, but I knew what was going on. Now, when you read this, they want you to think that the Phoenicians, that the Canaanites, that they were in the Levant. Now, we're up to date. The Bible's not wrong. It never has been. Diaspora. When Joshua starts killing these people off, with God's help, they break off in any way they can flee. They don't have cell phones. They don't call each other and say, "Whoa, this nigga went crazy. I'm going back home." They disperse into any land that they can find. He says that they pierced further into Africa, where they possessed all that tract under the Pillars of Hercules. The Pillars of Hercules that they're talking about isn't in Africa. it's between Africa and Spain. It's in the middle of the ocean. It's not in the middle of the ocean. It's in the water though. The Pillars of Hercules is just like, it's basically, there's the two land masses right here, and then right here between the two land masses is this kind of island thingy, and that's the area that they call Pillar of Hercules. But it's not the real Pillar of Hercules. The real Pillar of Hercules is actually fucking pillars. So it's a word game because they don't want you to know what's really going on. But I looked up the Pillars of Hercules and it led to all sorts of things. It even led to, I don't want to give it away because that's going to be another video. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they pierced even the Pillars of Hercules. Speaking half Phoenician. Okay, so look. Close to the Pillars of Hercules, on the African side, the vanquished Canaanites refugees built two cities. They, the Canaanites, built the city of Tinge, and they built the city of Tangier, where were two pillars of white stone placed near to a great fountain. So this is a place where two pillars of white stone, two actual pillars, were placed near a great fountain, in which the Phoenician tongue was engraved, "We are the Canaanites whom Joshua the thief chased out." They tell you Joshua is a thief. Now listen, in the New Testament they tell you Jesus come as a thief in the night, right? Here, in their words, Joshua came as the thief in the night. See, Joshua was our Jesus. He delivered us unto the promised land. And we have utterly no respect for Joshua. We call on the strange God, Jesus, whom has nothing to do with the Creator. If Jesus was important to the Creator, then Ezekiel's name wouldn't be here. Then Jeremiah's name wouldn't be there. Then Daniel's name wouldn't be after. Hosea's name wouldn't be there. You would see Jesus' fucking name. Is it that hard to understand? The prophets of the Lord said, the Lord didn't give you a strange God. So basically, they called Joshua a thief here, right? So in the complete works of Josephus. So in Josephus, check this out. Moses Chor or Cor Enesis sets down the famous inscription at Tangier concerning the old Canaanites driven out of Palestine by Joshua. We are those exiles that were governors of the Canaanites, but have been driven away by Joshua the robber. You see, they call him a robber and a thief, right? In their version, Joshua's a robber and a thief. We have the words of the prophet where we are promised this land. It is ours. It is given to us as a possession. And these maggots, they call him a robber and a thief. And this is why, if the Phoenicians write this then, this is why they don't respect us today. They call Joshua a robber, a thief up here, a robber here, and are come to inhabit here. So they came to inhabit Tangier because Joshua robbed them. They don't state they were on the land of Shem. They shouldn't be there, right? We can find the Lord's words where he says in Deuteronomy, destroy these people. But here we are being called a thief. says, in these times, the inhabitants of northern Africa became known as Berbers and Moors. Now, the Amorites and Phoenicians, the Berbers and the Amorites went home. Here's the problem. The Berbers are Negro looking, and the Moors are Negro looking, but they're not Negroes. I've tried to explain this to you many times. They look like you. They are not you. They are blood relatives of the Canaanites. They are actually Canaanites. They don't look like American Indians. They look like American Negroes. But they're still Canaanites. I can't help that that's confusing. Africa produces black people such as Ethiopians, Berbers, and Amorites. Although I don't know the names right now, Japhet produces black people too. They look like Negro. They are not Negro. When they intermix, they're called Negrito. They have Afro-esque hair, even though it's not the standard Afro. So, people with dark skin come from all the forefathers. It's pretty safe to assume people with dark skin, medium skin, and light skin come from all the forefathers. But it's very easy to see that, excuse me, I'm not being insulting, I'm using a classic term, Mongoloid. It seems those don't come from but one forefather, Ham. What we call Mongoloid, what we call Asian, even though we're actually called Asian, these are Hamites. What we call American Indians are Canaanites, which means that they're Hamites. They're not related to you. They broke the law and we were sent to destroy them. We did not. They saw us as enemies. They sided with the people that came and conquered this land. They stayed on this land as tenants, and we were their landlord. We were overthrown. By the people of the sea. They became their new landlords. It states, from Nubia, the Canaanites soon made it across the Straits of Gibraltar and reached as far as north as Scandinavia and the British Isles. In these countries and Europe in general, they have left evidence of their existence over large areas of land and are known to the anthropologist as the Beaker people. Says the northward thrust. Now, if you are listening to me and I keep saying North American Indian, even though it says up here, okay, don't bullshit yourself. And maybe you don't believe me. Now I'm going to read the description of them. Oh, I usually don't do this. Oh, we're celebrating today because I took the time to read this all the way through before I read it to you. And that's why I'm reading it a little bit clearer than usually, because the sentence and the sentence forms aren't new to me. I've already read them. Besides, I like this writer. He writes smooth sentences, and they're not too backwards. Now listen to this. After a respite at Gilgal, Joshua and the Israelites thrust northward as far as Hazor, meeting the Canaanite host at the water of Mernom, by the waters of Mernom. Here, they utterly defeated the combined forces of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, and the Hivites. 5 forces were combined against them. Right now, what you don't know is where the waters of Mernom are. So, if I ask the computer, where are the waters of Mernom? And I randomly said, hey, let's say the river's actually let's say the water is actually a river. Let's say if like Mernom River comes up. Well, it turns out when I go into the search engine, Mernom Lake by the waters of Mernom. Mernom Lake, Indiana shows up. Now, those of us that have been studying this for some time and have saw that there are things that have been dug up on the United States soil that relate to Hebrew, like the Decalogue stone, or the Bat Creek cave stone. Now, these are just introduced to me last week, and my memory has already retained the titles of these things. But for those of you that are familiar with those kinds of things, we're going to just type in Mernom, Indiana. Like it says, there's a Wikipedia. It's a small town in Gill Township, Seville County, Indiana, United States. So now imagine this. So what it says is, after a respite at Gilgal. Now we don't know where Gilgal is. Joshua and the Israelites thrust northward as far as Hazar. Now we don't know where Hazar is. And it says they met the Canaanites by the waters of Mernom and utterly defeated them. Alright? Now, the only place... Now, you saw me. I typed in Mernom. Here, I'll just... Mernom. Right? Now, of course, there's one on the other side of the world. But did you know there's a Mernom here? Let's scroll down. It says history. Geographics. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go history. The town's name commemorates the battle of the waters of Mernom. Wait a second. You mean to tell me there's a place in Indiana that commemorates the battle that happened thousands of years ago? That's supposed to happen on the other side of the world. Okay, well, let's just... Battle of the waters of Mernom. According to the Bible, battles of the waters of Mernom between the Israelites and the coalition of Canaanite city-states. It has been suggested that this battle may never have taken place, and that its narrative might have preserved some remote echoes of war conducted by these places in an early Iron Age. Okay, so here's where I have to tell you, you've got to type in, you've got to open Google Maps. You've got to open up Deuteronomy 34 and 32. If you've seen the video that exists called Mapping It Out, Mapping Things Out, then you know it exists. I've told you, when we go to the book of Genesis, I'm going to make this very clear. It says you need 2 witnesses to prove something. So I'm going to just show you the second witness. Now, if you've looked at the Google images, then you already know. Now, here's the second witness. Now, it says that Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare a son, Enoch. All right, in 17 it says Enoch, but there's a 10 by there. If you look at 17 and look where it says 10, it says Chinook. Now it says Chinook, all right? So that means that the real name of the people and the city, he built a city and named it after his son. It says he named it Enoch, but he didn't, because they got a precept that says Chinook. Now, if you type in Chinook, it's not spelled the same. Instead of O is I. Here, C-H Chan Ook, right? But they go O-OK, right? Chinook, right? Indians. So, see how it's O-OK? C-H Chin Ook, alright? And in the Bible, I'll turn the page, sorry. In the Bible, it's Chan Ok, like O-C-H, okay? And they don't have the C-H anymore. They just got the O-OK. Right? Chinook Indians. Now, Chinook people, tribes encountered Lewis and Clark, right? Where do they show you these people live? In the United States. These are the children of freaking Cain of the Bible, people. Chinook Indians reside right there. They also reside up in here. They don't want to tell you right away. Alright? Utah is right over here. You see this game? Indiana is right here. Or over here some more. Now you already know, if I type in ancient people, ancient bodies found in Indiana. Yeah, let's do it. I have no idea if ancient bones. I have no idea about this one. Found in, let's go Marome. Yeah. Kiss my... That better. Prehistoric bones found in cave in Indiana. Significant deposit of Ice Age bones found in southern Indiana. Come on, people. It ain't gonna get no better than this. It's not gonna get no better than this. What did it... Wait. I read something and it said something about the Ice Age before. Early Iron Age, right? Early Iron Age and the freaking Ice Age. This is the same time period, people. It's the same time period. In Indiana. I love it. I love it when I prove it on film. Double up. Yeah, I'm a dork. I'll get over it. But you're witnessing my celebration. When I celebrate, people don't die. When I celebrate, people don't get knocked out. People don't get raped. People don't get murdered. No cars got flipped over when I was celebrating. A page was read and some champagne was popped. People, this is happening in America. This battle is happening in Marome, Indiana. Like, I literally didn't look this up. I'm saving this shit. This is coming up in the next video, maybe, or in the next, or after that. Like, this is what it's like when Alex has an epiphany on screen and he's trying to control himself because there's no screaming. Yeah. The land of the Hittites at the time of the conquest extended north of Palestine, okay? So you know Palestine is the real name. Palestine ain't on the other side of the world. Palestine's on this side. These are biblical fences. When it says Palestine through Syria into the Euphrates River, this Dead Sea is the Salt Lake's Dead Sea bed. Euphrates, you make the call. It's the Colorado or it's the fucking Mississippi. You make the call. This shit is here. This shit is here. Palestine is probably Mexico. I know I thought Jericho was probably Mexico, especially based off the name. But, you know, turns out these guys were too lazy to change the map. And you can find it in Utah. Turns out people that are already in the Bible didn't even pay attention that Jericho was right there until I brought that out. Now they're telling me as far as Arizona, on the buses it says visit Moab now. They're telling me in Las Vegas, the same billboards on buses, visit Moab. How many of you believe in the Bible? No, I'm not asking about parts. You believe in the Word of God. I ain't asking you if you believe in the first half. I ain't asking you if you believe in the second half. Just forget it. How many of you believe? That Bible says Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed. That Bible says Lot's wife is there till this day. You can see it. Come with me. We'll find it. We'll preach to the ancient mountains. You stand right next to me, Ezekiel 36, also, thou, son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel. Be right there with me. We can do this together. We can make history together. I can do it alone. I can't go far without my wife. I won't really be alone. You can come with me. And as a group, we can preach to the mountains. We can prophesy to the mountains. Listen to this. It says, we go out there looking for Moses' body, right? And we got to get permission from our enemy, right? Let us dig in our own mountain so we can find our ancient forefather. Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God, because the enemy hath said against you, aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. You want the Ark of the Covenant? We own the mountain. You want the body of Moses? We own the mountain. You want your Aztec gold? Aha! We own the mountain. Stand beside me. Let's get back to this. It says, stand at North Palestine, Assyria, all that shit's over here. You've just been lied to the Euphrates River. See Judges 1:6. Following their defeat at the hands of Joshua, the Hittites, along with the other Canaanites, fled northward to Syria to Anatolia. Now, I tell you, Syria is up there by New York, where it says Saratoga and shit like that, right? That's on the border of Canada. So, type in 5 civilized tribes. Type in Canada. I mean, Canada is, it says Canaan. You get rid of the D. Watch this. This is all you got to do to make it say Canaan. Get rid of the D. Space. Add an N. That's simple. They didn't do a lot to hide anything. So there's 5 civilized tribes in Canada. Okay, the Native American freedmen of the 5 civilized tribes. See how, okay, these are the 5 civilized tribes in North America, right? And it's called 5 civilized tribes, right? And then you have the fucking civilized tribes of Canada, and it's called the Freeman Native Americans, the 5 civilized, fucking stupid names, dude. But you see it exists. Alright, so it's, you know what? You find it easier when you look up Chinook. Yeah. Get this. Yeah. Alright, Chinook political party, indigenous groups, Chinook Indians, culture. Because eventually they tell you that flathead children heads, right? Flattening flattening the kids' heads, right? And the flatheads are part of the civilized tribes. Look, I'm gonna look at it another time, because I want to stick to this stuff that has to do with this one. You know, get sidetracked in a heartbeat. It says, so famous were these people, so different from other races, that they gave their name to all the lands that they migrated, as late as the Chaldean Empire of Nebuchadnezzar, and the name Hatti. Isn't that just like Haiti? Hatti. Now, I'm not saying Haiti, I'm just saying, isn't it just like Haiti? Haiti has two eyes. But I think it's funny when it says they name shit after themselves, and the first name that comes in is Hattie, right? Or Chatty, right? Ham or Cham was applied to Syria, Palestine, at the part of the Eastern Asia Minor. In Egyptian monuments, the true Hittite peoples were depicted with prominent noses. Now, I want you to think about your average image of the American Indian. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's YouTube. I want to go to Google. And I want to type in American Indian. Oops. Fuck you on, shit. Alright, so when you type in American Indian, you're going to get to pictures. Now I want you to think, yeah, this is great. That's great. So I want you to think about this image as I read this stuff off to you. Alright? Now, you don't have to think about too much else. And I can't hold the image on screen and read, so just kind of blink your eyes a couple times. That's you kind of taking a snapshot, whether you believe it or not. Right? That image is now burned into your mind for a little bit. Okay. True Hittite peoples were depicted with prominent noses, straight or hawked. You know how a hawk's beak is? It's curved a little bit. Hawked. Somewhat broad, with lips full, the cheekbones high. Alright, now we all know long noses and high cheekbones are verbal Indian features. This is how people verbally describe Indians. The eyebrows are fairly prominent, the forehead receding like the chin. Now listen very close. And the face hairless. Now, I'm going to go back to Google now. Show me an Indian with a beard. Wait, look how his chin recedes. Doesn't his chin go the same way? Isn't his nose kind of broad? Right? Am I right or am I wrong? Where's the beard? Where's the goatee? Where's the mustache? Face hairless. Now, this is one of those points where I like to laugh at Israelites that sit there and say American Indians are related to you. Those Israelites are fucking idiots. How many times have you seen an image of an Indian? And how many times has an Indian looked anything like you? You've seen countless pictures of Indians, and they never look like you. Face hairless. The hair black. It might as well say jet black, but they didn't have jets back then, did they? Right. So, does he have red hair? No. Anybody else? Any of them got blonde hair? Nope. Any of them got yellow hair? Nope. Any of them got light brown hair? Nope. All of them. Every Indian you've ever seen, their hair is jet black. Eyes dark brown. This is from the book Races of the Old Testament. Somebody should get that book. Somebody should get that book and see if they give an actual description of an Israelite. But they got these Indians dead on. excuse me, I'm sorry, they got these Canaanites dead on. The skin color. This is from a different book, okay? Now, this section right here is from a different book. It's from Compendium of World History. This is from Volume 1 from Ambassador College, 1963, page 359, 360. The skin color varied from brown to yellowish and reddish. Wow, that's very interesting. That guy is black and white, so you can't really tell. That's just drawn. So, I mean, come on, you guys already know where I'm going with this. You've all seen the Indians. Some of them look yellow. Some of them look red. And some of them just look brown. Some of them look dark brown. Some of them look light brown. Some look dark red. Some look light red. So, this is a spot-on description. I'm not trying to put that into your head. I'm freaking showing you. I'm not reading this and then you just, well, that sounds like an Indian to me. No, you can see it for your freaking self. Where's his beard? Look how even this thin-faced guy, his nose is big as shit. His chin is recessed. You can't tell about his forehead because he's wearing a hat. High cheekbones, long nose, recessed forehead and chin, no facial hair, black hair. Come on. A child can get this. A child that has nothing to gain can get this. But somebody that calls themselves an Israelite, that's been brain-fed that these people are your blood brothers, well, yeah, you're not going to get it. Because, you know, somebody's been playing in your head. Now, remember, the Canaanites at this point are refugees. So it says, some refugees from the invasion of Joshua and the Israelites stayed in Asia Minor and became part of the great Hittite Empire. Now, understand, they'd have to get back on their Phoenician boats and come back to the old world. Look, this is too much evidence to show you that Joshua's here. Too much evidence to show you Joshua's here. And he's picking out cities and giving land to the children of Israel before he passes away. There's no way he's chasing Canaanites around the world like a fucking sheriff. Alright, so it says a number of them crossed over into Europe and traveled the area of modern Scandinavia and Britain. The evidence of the migration was left in an unusual way. Now, that is a sentence that we seem to be repeating, but he's going to explain it. The supreme god of the Canaanites was the weather god. So you understand, like, people control the weather today. Governments do. Archaeologists have uncovered representations of this deity mounted on bulls at the site across the map of Europe. Excuse me, at sites all across the map of Europe. So all over the world, especially in Europe. Now, they're going to tell you there's other places too. So that's why I say all over the world. They find these statues of their god, the weather god, and he's mounted on bulls. He's either standing on them, riding them like a surfboard, or, you know, I actually haven't seen an image of him sitting on a bull. I've only seen images of him standing on a bull. And we're going to get to this because his name is Melkart. Well, there we go. Hidden. Fucking hidden, right? Had to go down a little bit. Melquat. That's because I spelled it wrong. And if you get into this, he's identified with Hercules, but he's not Hercules. And it turns out that Hercules is Tyrion, which is, you know, related to these guys. And when you go down here, you find out that in the Bible, Elijah mocks their god, who is Melkart. Basically, it came to pass at high noon, Elijah mocked them and said, cry out aloud, for he is a god. Either he is lost in thought, or he was wandering away, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is sleeping and he must be wakened. And this is at the time that Elijah is about to burn their armies with the fire of God. So again, if you haven't read like 1st and 2nd Kings, like, you know, you claim to be an Israelite and not know who the kings are, or have never heard of the kings, that's insane. You know, if you don't know, the king's bloodline for the 2 cities, it's kind of goofy too. Today we have a lot of vocal involvement with the Bible, but no physical. That means I should show you this picture. You know what? Everybody knows what Malcolm X looks like, right? I'm gonna show you this picture. And so I don't know how long into the video this is, but if you made it this far into the video, then this is a bonus to you. Now there's Malcolm X, right? Alright, I'm gonna show you these 2 different pictures. Now you see this picture of Malcolm X right there, right? I'm gonna show you this other picture. Now, my computer tried so hard. I want you to see something. Now, here's Malcolm arrested. Alright. Now, when he gets arrested, it really doesn't look like the man we grew accustomed to getting to know. Now, what happens here versus what happens here? And it's better if I use the other picture, this one, because it seems something happened. Now, this is before prison, and he's got this big wide head, and then something happens to his brain, and then his head thins out. I think he went to jail, prison, and started reading, and I think it changed the muscles in his head. I've been thinking about this all day, and I think it happens to everybody that begins to read. I think something makes your head look elongated. Now, when we look at Malcolm X's images, now that I've said that, and you've looked at those other pictures, does his head not look elongated to you? And I do not mean in some UFO type of way. I just mean in comparison. It's the same man, same face. It seems the head has changed, and it's not about his hair. It's almost as if he started working out, and the workout slightly changed his look. I will always suggest to you to read. I'll never just attempt to lie to you because you can always read something to find out that I'm lying to you. I encourage you to read in your own spare time. Something happens to you when you read. The information is stapled into your own brain. So, let's get back to this. Excuse me. Archaeological sites have yielded representations of deities mounted on bulls, leave a migratory trail of dots through Europe. Okay, that's great. We're going to scroll down a bit. Now, it says, by the time Gathlius and his followers, see our article, The Stone That Roared, Incredible Story of Lilithel, reached Germany in the decades immediately following the Exodus, but they found the Canaanites already in residence there. Alright, so, again, these people. So, it seems that during the Exodus, a separate group could have broke off from Moses. And it could have been led by somebody that called himself H-U. And we'll start to get into this. Because this leads back, believe it or not, is full circle, right? This leads back to Isus. You see, when we go to Isus, and it tells us down at the bottom that Isus, in the 18th century, Druidic rivalist Lulu Moore identified Isus with Jesus on the strength and similarities of their names. He also linked them both, even Jesus, to Gadaran. He the Mighty is supposed Welsh legendary figure. Now, he's supposed to be an Israelite leading the Welsh. Now, this is not supposed to be a Welsh person. It's supposed to be an Israelite leading Welsh. And here's where we're going to get the proof for that. Wow, see, it's already turned into so many freaking windows, man. Alright. Alright, they, Gathlius, Scotta, and their followers went at last till they reached Germany. They make a halt in it. It is there that it came to a troop of soldiers of the Pict folk, a name Canaanites were called by other nations. So this isn't a name Canaanites call themselves, it's a name other nations called Canaanites. They called them the Picts. P-I-C-T, like picture, Picts. They called them this on the account of the fame and glory of that sea expedition of Golaam, or Gathlius, they having a knowledge of one another from the time he was in Thracia. Okay, so this is where their homeland was, Thracia, with his people. Each of them welcomed the other, and they joined their treaty and friendship on each side. When they were agreed, the Picts, the Canaanites, complained to them of the narrowness of their land and the territory of Thracia, and in Pict land, Gathlius with his brethren and children promised that they would help give them help in military alliance to them to contend for another territory and fair heritage. They'd help them pick another place to live, and that they would be united against their enemies as though they were brethren. So basically they're telling them, if we do find another place to live, and as we're finding the place, the Israelites come upon you, we'll stand in place of your brothers and fight with you against the Israelites. It says, until that they, Gathlius and his people, should get rest and should desist
from the sea journeys and wanderings in which they were, because Gaetius had just came back from a sea voyage, and then they came and found the Canaanites in their land. This is basically what all this is saying. And then when they all met up, they were like all cool with each other, and then they said, Gaethius said, well, since you're on my land, it's cool, you can stay here. And then as the Canaanites were staying there, now this is just a small amount of Canaanites, like diaspora, this is just one small amount that survived. And they're just like, well, there's not really that much room here, you know what I mean? So they're already crying. So he said, hey man, you know what? Forget it. Let us rest. We just got back from this voyage. We'll help you find some new land. And if we come across anybody, no matter who it is, knowing you just got your ass handed to you, we'll even fight those people as if we were your brothers. All right, it says, until that they, Gaetius and his people, should get rest and desist from the sea journeys and wanderings which they were, and they should reach their native land. The Picts, the Canaanites, were satisfied with that and took farewell with Gaethius thereafter. It is from that treaty and friendship with the Picts joined with Goliathum, however that's pronounced, that long afterwards, and the Gaedel Prefruts cleared for them the land that were the Picts, the Canaanites, are as Gaethius foretold at the time. Oh, what the hell ever. So I think this has to do with Ireland, but don't quote me on that one. Okay, so it says years later, Heremon, the son of Gaethalus, the son of Gaethalus, would fulfill his promise. Now here's the mighty, you the mighty. So this is where Esus comes in, or here we go. Shortly after fleeing, Canaanites became ensconced embedded ensconced in northwestern Europe. Another great migration took place after, and that was once again uprooted the vanquished descendants of the Canaanites. In the Welsh triads, traditional chronicles, we find mentioned a mysterious man by the name Hugh the Mighty, who led a group of settlers from the Middle East to the Isles of Britain. Now, did you hear that? This is Welsh tradition. So the Welsh, part of them came from the Middle East. They didn't all come from a mysterious island. Alright? So, the Welsh come, one pocket of Welsh come from a mysterious island, which is considered a phantom island. Another group is led in by Hugh the Mighty, and they're from the Middle East, and they're led to the Isles of Britain. This is E. Ray Captain telling the story. Hugh Gardarn, Hiscone, Scion. This is why we have Scion cars. Hiscone, which says Isaac's son, or Hugh the Mighty, led a party from Asia Minor to Britain, a descendant of Abraham. Look how he had all that in capital letters. Hugh the Mighty's coming to Britain provides one of the first recorded instances of the fulfillment of the prophecy found in Genesis 28:14, that the seed of Abraham would be spread to the four corners, to the 4 points of the compass. Alright, now that's fair to say, because even the Europeans say when they arrived in Europe, there was already aboriginals. Now, they say those aboriginals live in their ghettos today. They're called Negroes. And that's over in Europe. And that's from the book The Blood Stay Pure. So if people think I'm making shit up, every time I can, trace my source, I will. I'm just some dumb Negro that lives in a ghetto that smokes weed and reads the Bible. And somehow I got an edge on everybody else. It says the Welsh triads or traditional chronicles. The triads are the traditional chronicles. Alright, so when it says the triads, they're just talking about the books. Alright? The traditional chronicles that the Welsh people read from are called the triads. Give evidence of you the mighty coming from Asia. In Welsh Triad 4 we read that the first of the 3 chieftains who established the colony was you mighty, who came with the original settlers. See, original settlers. So there could be a group of Israelites, or they're going over there. There could be Arabs going over there as well. There could be Arabs and Israelites going over there. Right now we have no idea until we investigate you, the mighty. Okay, so it says they came over the hazy sea from the summer country, which is called Afro-Bani. That is where Constantinopolis now stands, and it'd be Constantinople. And this is called Stonehenge and Druidism. That's the book that comes from 1970. It says, who is you, Gardan? You the mighty, a descendant of Abraham. Herman L. Ho reveals the answer. Excuse me. When and how did the children of Israel migrate to the Western Europe? The answer is found in Cimbriac or Welsh history. Now, if you take this name, Cimbriac, and start typing it into YouTube, you're going to come up with an hour-long video that's going to tell you that these people came from a phantom island. That's how I found it. Okay? Usually it's CYBMY. It is hard to find and trace the biblical name or the close to biblical name of the Welsh and stay on par with it. Because the Welsh are a mystery. Now, the people that God sent there are coming in this portion, and the people that came from is hidden in history. They've hidden themselves well. They've come from an island that is considered a phantom island. Alright, it says a fragmentary Welsh record called the Welsh Triad now reads, first was the race of the Samari. See, there it is. C-Y-M-R-Y. That's the best way to find it. Who came Ugarin to Yenius Pergian. You came from the land of summer, a land located somewhere in what later constituted the realm of Constantinople, an Arab area, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. He journeyed to Ysprian, the Welsh name for the Isle of Britain. The first major settlement preceded migration in 1149 of Brutus of Troy to Britain. Who is Ugaran? Is a Welsh word which means mighty. U is short form of the old Celtic name Jesus. Originally Celtic by Edwin. Jesus is Celtic and also the Spanish pronunciation of Jesus. Was there a famous Jesus who lived in the balmy summer land of the Eastern Mediterranean centuries before the time of Christ? Most certainly it is found in Hebrews 4:8. For if Jesus, that is Joshua, had given them rest, then they then would he not afterward have spoken another day? I don't, whatever. He says, Jesus was merely the Greek form of the Hebrew name Joshua, or Jesus the Mighty. Was Joshua the Mighty, the great general who led Israel into Palestine, and the Welsh triad records in his later years he also settled Israel peacefully in the Isles, which is not true. From there, for trading purposes. See, this is just one of those bullshit ways that they can try to say that the British people are Israelites and shit. Like all of a sudden, it's like that. What the guy Gabel Abdel Nasir says, you aren't the Jews to the Israeli. He says you left here black and you came back white. So this author's, taking some of that shit too. So I'm gonna skip here. All right, so the writer is starting his call. You, Joshua, and Jesus, and it's starting to get to a confusing point. So it's best to skip over that because I'm not falling for that nonsense because I already know that this man didn't travel the world the way that these people are depicting him to have. He came to this country with Moses, and they both died here. Them saying all this other shit, they have to say he did something. So it's no surprise to me. Now, this is where it starts to get real good, because the connections that are made here are going to constantly be brought up in the future. Extending across the northern parts of Norway, Sweden, Finland, the Kola Peninsula of the old Soviet Union is a region known as Lapland, most of which lies within the Arctic Circle. The people inhabiting this area are known as Lapps, a third of whom are nomadic, living during the winter in the interior and during the summer on the coast. So during the wintertime, it's too cold on the coast. The wind comes off the water and it's super freezing. So, it would be impossible to do that. So it says other Lapps live permanently in scattered settlements on the coast and the numerous fords, while many are established in villages at heads of the valley or on well-stocked lakes. The majority of the Lapps live in Norway, where they are called Finns. Okay, so according to Funkenwell, a new encyclopedia, the principal location of the Lapps is herding reindeer. So their principal occupation is herding reindeer, from which both food and clothing are derived. Other occupations are hunting and fishing. The lifestyle of the Lapps in the 6th century AD is mentioned by Procopius, a Byzantine, that means he is a Turk, Byzantine historian who lived 500 to 565. So he lived 65 years. And during his 65 years, he stopped in this place and he was like, I want to check these mothers out. And when he stopped in, he was like, I'm going to chronicleize what I saw. And we're about to read what he saw. Alright, so Procopius is eloquent on the subject of the midnight sun. But his most striking information relates the Scrofini. Let me pronounce that real shit. Let's see if I can find where the syllables are. Skriftani. Gwen Stefani. Skriftafani. Jordanes Scriptophonea, the Lapps, or Finns, if you're in, what other place were they at? Norway. Finns if you're in Norway. The Lapps, whose way of life was like to that of beasts. Listen to this. These are fucking Canaanites. Their way of life is like that of beasts. They were a hunting people who drank no wine and raised no crops. They had no garments of clothes and nothing he recognized as shoes. You understand, these people are in the freaking snow. They're on the ice. He says, I don't even recognize these people as having anything on their feet. Their bodies covering derived like its substance from the animals they hunted and slew. Oh, they probably wore skins like socks, right? Whose skins they fastened together with sinews. I think sinews, that's veins. Yeah. No, that one's kind of important. I think sinews are veins. Oh, there's one down there. Yeah, they're veins. Tendons, not veins, tendons. So like the back of your thigh, when Jacob wrestled the angel and he grabbed the thigh, he grabbed the sinew, and that is the muscle, the tendon back there. Vigorous strength, muscle power. Often sinews the source of mainstay, vitality, strength. Okay, so they used tendons, muscle tendons of the animals that they were cutting up to sew things together. Even their children were nursed differently from the rest of mankind. Look how fucked up this is, dude. Like, that's like the worst sentence ever. Even their children were nursed differently from the rest of mankind. Now listen to this. They knew nothing of the milk of women. They knew nothing of mama's milk. Can you believe that? No milk for you. And then was like, keep them tiggle bitties for me. They knew nothing of the milk of women, nor ever touched their mother's breast, but were nourished on marrow from bones of beast. Can you believe that shit? As soon as a woman had given birth, she thrust the child into a skin, like a sack, which she afterwards hung from a tree. So they popped out a baby, and as soon as they had the baby, she was like off to go hunting. She was like, I'm gonna put the baby in the sack. We're gonna hang it from the tree, because if you left the baby on the ground, an animal would get the baby, or the baby would get cold. Right? They thrust the child into a skin, which she hung from a tree, and then having put marrow in the child's mouth, like as soon as babies are born, they just pop bone marrow in the mouth, put them in a sack, hang them from a tree. She went off with her husband a-hunting. These children aren't even nursed like the rest of mankind. They're bone sucklers. Marrow for the little... That's crazy. I think they hang them up like laundry. Come on, you can't make this shit up. Oh, shit. The jokes I'm gonna make tomorrow. Other characteristics, this is from the Indian teepee. Its history, construction, and use. The fact, within historic times, we find people living in conical skin tents all around the Arctic Circle. The Lapps in Europe, the Americanoid Yungar in Siberia, Indians throughout entire Mackenzie area of Canada, among the Caribou Eskimo west of Hudson Bay, and in Labrador. Labrador is up in Canada as well. I don't know why they made that separate. In all these tents, we have the inside center fire, the smoke hole centering around the crossing of the poles. You have to cross the poles. You can't have a pole in the center if you have a fire. You have to cross the poles, and you have to cross at the top, or else the poles catch on fire. Centering around the crossing of the poles at the top, the eastern entrance, the place of honor within opposite the door, just as the teepees of the Indians, of the Plain Indians, that's the Plain Indians of North America. This is showing you all of them have the same style of tents. The Indians here are the same Indians as there. The Indians there are the same Indians that were, got their asses kicked by Joshua. They were supposed to be murdered off. You see them today saying that the land belongs to them, while the white man jingles all the keys. You know what I know. I can open the scripture in 30 seconds and read to you, the Lord promised you this land. We allowed them to live. And this is exactly why he said kill them off. They said the Aztecs were murdering people, giving sacrifices. Didn't the Lord say murder them off? He said you can't do it all at once. Your brother brought it up today. What do you see in Apocalypto? Now, I know it's all Canaanites in the movie, but you are supposed to view the Aztec differently. When you see the picture of Montezuma and you know he's Negro, then you know he's got Negro people. So the Negroes were ordered by the Lord to go and round these people up and destroy them. Now, I can't help that the Aztec built pyramids, and the Aztec said things like, to appease the gods, well, to appease the Creator, we have to destroy the Canaanites that live on the soil. See, we were only taught half the story. We weren't taught to look at the other half, the hidden half, because you got to find the hidden half. And then when you find the hidden half, you got to decide how much is still hidden from you. Now, I want you to think about it. Think about, now, let us find the truth. The internet author, awesome guy. Internet author, let us find the truth. Talked to me today. I called him, and we talked about the movie Apocalypto briefly. Now, I want you to think about this. He said this. Now, is the Aztec calendar, which is actually the Toltec calendar, is that the Enochian calendar? And we both agreed we haven't studied enough of either calendar to make any kind of assumption. And then that made me start thinking about how the Aztecs were rounding people up and slaughtering them. They didn't give a shit what tribe those people came from, as long as they were native to there. Yeah. When you think about what the Israelites were ordered to do, when you know later in the book of Joshua, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, each of the Israelites on their own land complain that the Canaanites are still on their land, and that the Canaanites have chariots. And Joshua, or Hosea, orders them, well, he simply says, you are the mighty Israelites. You can't get rid of them. And that's how he leaves it. And we know today they survived. Now, I'm not saying that, like, go out and destroy them. Things have completely changed. Everything that's happened has happened for a reason, and it's been known it was going to happen. Genesis 9 says, these Canaanites in the last days will be your servant, not the Lord's servant. They will be a servant to the servant. And I'm getting ready to use them. Just like they used us. I've got a plan. I'm simply going to implement the plan. And it's going to take me out. It's the end of the plan takes me right to the Moab desert. Right to the mountain. Why do you think they named it Zion Park? They named it a state park. They made it a state park so you can't just go and take it over when you find out where it's at. Now they said they own it. So, this tells you over and over again, conical tents. The next part tells you wigwams. Now, these are all North American things, but this has to do with the people living up there. Alright, so as we scroll further down, tells you they are pushed to the extreme north. It says, it claims Joshua invaded Scandinavia. Joshua, from my studies, Joshua passes away. He's laid to rest in the Americas. I believe it's North America. He asks for a specific place. He wants to be buried. He wants a place that's by Mount Ephraim. Now, Mount Ephraim is a mountain system. Each time it reaches a certain peak, it's still called Mount Ephraim. There's Mount Ephraim in North America, and there's a Mount Ephraim in, I believe, South America or the Mexico area. There is also Mount Seir here in North America. Now, Mount Ephraim is part of the Appalachian Mountain Trail. Mount Seir is part of the Rocky Mountain Trail. Now, Mount Seir starts up in Canada. It's not a mountain peak. It's a continuous mountain range. Today we call them mountain ranges. In the Bible we called it one mountain. When it reaches a certain elevation and continues, it's a continuous mountain. We call those today mountain ranges. It's not called that in the Bible. Just want to make that very clear. Mount Seir starts or shows itself in Canada. Mount Seir could continue to the other side of the world. It's an etching on a plate. Like, here's the plate, and when Mount Seir is pushed up, as long as it continues that elevation, it doesn't matter. It could have 2,000 peaks on top of it with different names each, but there's still Mount Seir. So Mount Seir also shows up on the map in Arizona, I think. But it's, again, continuous, especially when it's at a specific elevation. So when the Bible says Mount Seir, it's talking about the whole mountain range. Fallen angels have egos. Fallen angels fell, they went to Mount Seir. It's the whole mountain range. Talks about the red rocks of Mount Seir. That's a specific area of the mountain range that only has red rocks. That's in Utah. Everything points to Utah, buddy. Can't get around this one. When Joshua invades Scandinavia, and Joshua never left the country. When the Ephraimites are given their land, they pick the mountain that they're going to call Mount Ephraim, and then they ask Joshua, "You want anything?" And he says, "I'd like part of it. I'd like the city that's in the, what is it, valley of Mount Ephraim. Now, all you got to do is read this Bible. I mean, anybody can become famous reading this Bible today because everything's been hidden from you. You break their little codes and it's over. All you do is break their codes and Judgment Day comes faster. All of a sudden you're a supervillain to them because you want God to come sooner. All these movies where they show you the supervillain trying to destroy the world. And all these super teams of good guys trying to stop them. All that villain's trying to do is bring Judgment Day faster. Poor guy. He might be insane, but he really just wants God to come and end it. It says when Joshua invaded Scandinavia, the Lapps or Canaanites. And I'm going to tell you what, this is not Joshua. This is a separate group that's being led most likely by you. And since this is Scandinavia and you probably never left the Welsh area of Great Britain, this is probably a different Israelite doing the same thing that Joshua did. And this is how we got scattered and conquered the lands on the four corners of the earth. We're in the only land that was given to us by contract. If we read this Bible, it's going to tell us who was to stay on this land. It's going to tell us which tribe wasn't really scattered. We just got to read. So it says in the northern Finns. See, this is by Norway, so they call them Finns when they're up there by Norway, right? Scandinavia's up there. So it says on that part. So they call them Finns. They fell back to the extreme north part of the country, leaving behind archaeological vestiges and traces of their genealogical names of the country. It says the Lapps, the Lapps, were the Swedish Indians. So there you go. Indians again. Receding before the advance of a powerful conquering race, Joshua the Israelites. This is with the world's people by Ridpath, Volume 7. All it's going to do is say the same things. Okay, well, this one's in Ding Aviska Nordens in Varde. One can read of researching to learn the origin of a culture which was foreign to the Scandinavian countries. Nielsen mentions archaeological relics in the earth and the complementary traditions among the people. The former, the traditions, because of their beautiful shapes and above all their strange drawn figures. Well, no. Then that would be the relics then. The relics from their shapes and above all their strange drawn figures point to the Orient. So it says that they came from some kind of an Orient, right? Some kind of a multicultural thing that had to deal with either us or the other Canaanites of Sin or China. It said Phoenicia and Egypt, and that's where they... Oh, excuse me. The Orient, Phoenicia and Egypt. My bad. I was thinking of modern Orient, but of course I was wrong. Phoenicia and Egypt, the later point just as clearly to an old Canaanite Phoenician sun worship. So they're finding relics that deal with sun worship. Oriental relics that deal with sun worship. I have followed these traces and carefully as I have been able, and that's Nordica. That's what he writes. He says clearly, present-day Lapps are the descendant of Canaanites, known to the Greeks and Roman writers as the Picii or Piecuni, respectively, whom Joshua and the Israelites expelled from the Western Europe and Scandinavia. Alright, it says the flight to Ireland, and so this one's pretty much the same thing. I'm going to skip over that one. Now it says, that one has to deal with Hernan, King of Ireland, remembers the promise of Gaethius. Alright, basically, this one, some people come in, I'll read this one. This one's kind of interesting, and it shows you how the English were fighting. It was in the reign of Hermann, son of Gaelus. Continues the legend at the Cruntai, or Picts, so they picked up another name now, the Cruntai. Crunt and Nai, or Picts, arrived from the continent. They landed in the southwest at the mouth of the river Slaney. A tribe of Britons who fought with poison arrows, so they had poison arrows. The Britons had poison arrows at that time, ravaging at the corner of the island. The Picts helped drive out the marauders, and in reward were granted a settlement. There, the Crimethan, the chief of that quarter. Afterwards, they had a fallout with the Crimethan, and it was decided that they should be passed into Alba, Scotland. Alright, so the Canaanites that lived there ended up being passed into Scotland. Now, this is a good time to bring up the Canaanites when they were kicked out of Africa to start. It has nothing to do with Joshua. It has to do with leprosy. When they were kicked out of Africa, they went into the world, and when they went in, they went as a diaspora, or diaspora. And when they went in all these directions, they started doing their preaching of the mystery schools. This group of them, this faction, that are later forced into Scotland, this is how Scotland retains the Scottish Rite. This is where they would get that information passed on to them as a nation. Alright, so I'm going to skip down that, and I'm going to pause it because I don't know what I want to read. Not too much left that's worth reading. Hold on. Alright, now it starts a little bit further down. It says non-Mongoloid stock. Now, says all modern historians and anthropologists say American Indians have their roots in Asia and have crossed the Bering Strait to Alaska at some remote time in history. So all historians and all anthropologists deal with bones. They all say they're related. So when I sit there and say they're related, biblically, that's one thing. All modern historians and anthropologists say the American Indians have their roots in Asia, alright, and crossed the Bering Strait. So they're saying they came from Asia. They just can't, if they could prove they were from the southern tip of Africa, they said, all they can prove is that these guys crossed the Bering Strait, period. They don't know how far they came or nothing like that. It says, claims the Funk in Wagnall's New Encyclopedia. Most anthropologists believe that the majority of Indians are descendants from a generalized Asiatic Mongoloid population, that they left Asia before the development of the trait characteristic of Asiatic Mongols. The Indians migrated to the Western Hemisphere from Northern Asia about 20,000 BC or earlier via the Bering Strait or Aleutian Islands. So there's two different ways that they assume they could have came. Some anthropologists believe that the second and later migration, that a second and later migration brought peoples with increasingly pronounced Mongoloid traits to the Western Hemisphere. So they don't believe in one time coming over, that there's two different sets of times of them coming over. According to the encyclopedia, Funk and Wagnall's new encyclopedia, according to the encyclopedia, the Indians subsequently spread through North and South America. So not just North America, South America as well. So when we go to look up John Campbell, and he says, look, the dudes in Peru and these Hittites up here in Canada, they got the same freaking language. Well, anthropologists already proved that they're related. So you can see these historians and these researchers are being blackballed because of the pre-Columbus history involved, right? Nobody found the New World. According to the encyclopedia, the Indians subsequently spread through the North and South America from the Arctic regions to the Straits of Magellan, through the islands of the Caribbean Sea. Encyclopedia Britannica states that it's particularly certain that the people of North America took place from Siberia via Bering Strait, other land bridges to America being geologically too ancient to have served man. It follows that the racial origin of the Indians has to be sought in Asia. In the findings of anthropometry bear out the inference. Now, actually, their origin is in Africa, but again, these books have white supremacy agendas to keep. The Indian belongs obviously to the Mongoloid division of human species. He is brown skin with straight, stiff, black hair, a minimum of beard and body hair, a definitely broad face, in popular parlance, high cheekbones, and moderate prognathism. I don't know what that means. Whatever. These traits are constant among Indians, as among East Asiatics. The relations of the American Indian are to the Mongoloid stock as a whole rather than any specific Mongolian people. They are probably the closest to the East Siberians. So the writer states, can this be true? Where are the ancestors of the American Indians Mongoloid in stock? Were the ancestors of the American Indians Mongoloid in stock? And did they cross to the New World via the Bering Strait? Controversially, how could all the experts in today's scholarly community be wrong? So first of all, let's take a look at, well, they can be wrong because they're all supporting white supremacy, which means only blacks came from Africa. So we go further. It says, I was going to skip this, but it's talking a little bit about blood groups, so it doesn't start naming off DNA, but it's good. Keep it light. First of all, let's take a look at the so-called Mongoloid origins of the Native American. A number of open-minded scholars have shown that there are factors for which the strictly Mongoloid hypotheses cannot account. Juan Comas emphatically asserts that Amerindians are not a biologically homogeneous group. San Los Amerindian. Other experts such as Matson have agreed that the American Indians are not completely Mongoloid. It's in the book Distribution of Heredity, Blood Groups Among the Indians of South America. So I'm just going to skip the rest of that. These are okay. So they do have their blood groups here. They are mentioned. The topic of blood types also raised questions about the so-called Mongoloid origins of the American Indians. According to Hugh Nibley, in collection works of Hugh Nibley, it is fairly well known by now that the predominant blood type among the Mongols is B, a type which is extremely rare among the Indians, whose dominant blood type is O. That being found 91.3% of the pure-blooded North American Indians. Here's a mystery that requires much pondering and investigation. Now, I received an email from a lady who is part Blackfoot. In her message said, as someone who is part Blackfoot, I have been intrigued by the fact that the Blackfoot are only Native Americans. Are the only Native Americans, at least the only ones typed who have type A. Okay, so that's weird too, right? The Blackfoot have type A, and most other Indians, over 90% of them, have type O. It says Native Americans have type O. Over 90% of Native Americans have type O. You may be aware that human migration patterns have been born out of blood type dispersal worldwide. I've been wondering where this type A came from. Then I found your site, which provided the missing dot. Combined with this info, you can clearly see the confirmation of your assertion that the Blackfoot, Delaware, Algonquin are actually the Lapps. Boom. So, I hope you see what's going on. As we chased the Canaanites to some places, these are this is really weird to explain, because the way this is written as if the Israelites broke into separate groups and were dispersed all over the world. This Bible reads that the Israelites were given land on one continental area, presumably, separated by rivers. Now, it didn't matter if it's Asia, it doesn't matter if it's Africa, it doesn't matter if it's here in the Americas, it's still one continent. Now, I understand this is written as if they chased these Canaanites around all over the world. Now, I'm saying this because something comes up logically. And the logical thing is that there's two separate groups. One's led by Joshua when he takes over from Moses. And the other one's led by someone that's not known. And they continue all through what we call Europe. And as they continue, they disperse people in the areas. Now, it doesn't matter if there's if there's 12 tribes and each tribe breaks into two groups. But for the most part, we're in each land, and we were in each land before the Caucasus arrived. The only way we can prove this is all these Indians know we whooped their ass thousands of years ago and scattered their ass all over the world. We chased them. That's the easiest way to prove it. So, this is some stuff about the Caucasus, and it's irrelevant. it ends with, there's no doubt that these natives, the Native Americans, are really the Labs. So then they start talking about these guys. Here's the Aboriginal Red Record. The Aboriginal source of the Red Record, the Lenni Lenape, or the original people, were widely known and respected among the Indian tribes, with a deep knowledge of their past and tradition of the pictographic records. The Lenni were uniquely qualified to write and chronicle this chronicle of ancient heroes and events. So basically, there was one tribe of Indians that spoke for all Indians. There's one tribe of Canaanites that spoke for all Canaanites. And if they wanted something recorded, they went to this Lenni Lenape tribe. And the Lenni Lenape tribe were able to write in a written language and pictographic records. Alright, it states, in the long chain of tribes along the East Coast, and this is a Delaware tribe, it says, one ethnic group stands out, not only in European written sources, also in judgment of the Indians themselves. This remarkable group was the Delaware. Called in their own language the Lenni Lenape, they had a special status in the eyes of many other Indian people. They were reverenced as the grandfathers, representatives after a fashion of authority and legitimacy. So basically, these Delaware Indians, the Lenni Lenape, they kept the records, the recorded history for mainly all the Indians that knew that they were part of the same bloodlines. Alright, so Algonquin people comprised of several hundred tribes. Several hundred tribes, so like 200, 300, 500 tribes. Now look, that don't mean there was 30 members, that don't mean there was 300 members in each tribe. It just means it varied. And we don't have the numbers of what made up the smallest tribe and what constituted the largest tribe. So remember, tribes are families or groups of families that can get along. So several hundred tribes occupied most of the Canadian region. See? These are Canadians, right? These are Canaanite Indians, and they named that land Canada. The Europeans didn't come over here naming the place Canada. No, actually, they probably did. They probably shortened it to Canada. Anyway, most of the Canadian region lying to the south of Hudson Bay, between the Rocky Mountains and the Atlantic Ocean. They also occupied that section of what the United States, extending northward from North Carolina and Tennessee. You understand what's going on? There's boundary lines. These are hundreds of families, and there's boundaries that they cannot cross over. Do you understand that? That's because somebody else lives in those boundaries, and they allowed them to live instead of killing them off. And that's why you were overthrown. In addition, Algonquin tribes lived in various isolated areas to the south and west, including parts of what is now South Carolina, Iowa, Wyoming, and Montana. The best known Algonquin tribes is blah blah blah. Who gives a shit? Scroll down. No. Wait. So, in this article, Algonquins, Egyptians, and Uto, so that's Utah, Uto Aztecs, that's Utah, informs us that when Algonquin ancestors wed their way to the Great Lake Forest, some groups descended into the St. Lawrence Valley, while one group in particular extended up to North Labrador and down to New Jersey. Alright, see, look, does anybody understand right there? They just said the Canaanites that live on fucking North America, they did just combine them with, in the same sentence, the Egyptians and the Uto Aztecs. That means from Utah to down to the end of Mexico. He's talking about all these people living in the same areas. At the same time. But the white man keeps telling you the Egyptians are still in Egypt today. But you look over there and you don't see no black people. Alright, let me scroll down. You're crossing the Red Sea. This is kind of exciting, so I'll do this one and we'll call it. Alright, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm skipping over, but you know. So they got their own like creation story. Their creation story starts after the flood. And here's another story that came, and this is them crossing the water. Alright, this is how they came to America. And it says they came to great water. One of the Indians that went before them tried the depth of it with a long pole or reed, which he had in his hand, and he found it too deep for them to wade. Upon their being non-pulsed and not knowing how to get over it, non-pulsed is dumbstruck. Like they didn't come this far and then they're stopped by the water. Their God made a bridge over the water in one night. And the next morning, after they were all over, God took away the bridge. Alright, so it says the Mohicans are closely related to the Lenape, last of the Mohicans. They recalled an event according to Dr. Daniel G. Brighton in his the Lenape and Their Legends. Mohicans' description reflects the strong current characteristics of the Bering Strait, as well as its abundant marine life, with great numbers of whales migrating between the Arctic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Even the Chene, the Lenape tribe of the Great Plains, have a tradition of the crossing. In an extraordinary narrative, they recall having lived in the land that perpetually covered with snow and ice. Now we already read how they were the Finns and shit, right? So when they were the Finns, this is when it was. And they lived in the land, it was snow and ice, trying to escape the continual rule of Horimata, which is what they call winter storm. They started eastward towards the sun. After many years, they came into a narrow neck of sea. At the time when the water was frozen, the people were about half across the frozen water. One of the young women discovered a horn sticking out of the ice. The horn took her fancy. Even in these difficult times of moving, the women and the children made sliding sticks from horns and managed to enjoy life a little more. The woman wanted this horn, for it was large and long, and it would make a splendid sliding stick. She tried to. Now, let me say this. You understand? They're saying women and children made sliding sticks from horns. So they dealt with a lot of horned beasts at the time. Now, when you look and think about horned beast, there's not many things alive today that you could really think that has that many horns except for elephants. But you're not going to find elephants up there in the cold. Now, here's the funky thing. If you start thinking about like dinosaurs and things like that, and the claims that I have to say claims because where the dinosaur walked with man and man controlled dinosaur, then you can start to kind of imagine, these quote unquote sliding sticks. So I'll keep going because, when you find out what's really going on in the water, what this horn belongs to, you're going to be shocked. So she tried to pull the horn out of the ice, but the harder she pulled, the tighter the horn seemed to be embedded. She finally called her relatives for assistance. Some of the men came and helped her, but like her, they were unable to pull the horn out. And then they began to cut the horn. Now look, they're trying to cross the Bering Strait. They're on the water. Ice has formed overnight. Large amounts of people are able to walk on this ice, so it's pretty thick. And there's a horn sticking out of the ice, and this girl wants the horn. So people come over and try to help her. So they begin to cut the horn, for they liked the girl and wanted to make her happy. As they cut deeper into the horn, blood spurted out in great gushes. The people were frightened and grouped together on both sides of the men who were cutting the horn. Just as they realized that the horn must be that of a monster, they felt a great tremor and knew that the monster must be struggling below the frozen water. Before anyone could move away, the ice suddenly broke, the horn disappeared, a great chasm appeared. Some of the people were drowned. So look, they're playing around on ice. And when this monster frees itself, it leaves a hole, a chasm in the ice. Because the ice is starting to crumble. And the people that are, cutting on the a horn first, they're standing right there where the hole forms. So some of the people were drowned. So take this as a learning experience, And yes, it goes further than don't dick around on ice, You never know what kind of situation you'll be in. It says many of them found themselves before an ever-widening channel of water. So again, the ice just kept breaking and breaking. So they had to retreat to the land whence they had come. So get this. There's a big line of people. Somewhere in the middle, there's a girl, and she sees a horn, and she starts going for this horn. Then people start to help her. So now everybody's sitting there looking at this horn. They start chopping away at it. Then the animal starts bleeding all over the place. And the animal starts struggling, and it breaks the ice. And this isn't something small. This is something large. So large they call it a monster. This isn't a whale. Whales don't have horns. And when it breaks the ice continues to break, and the chasm widens. Right? So there's more and more water, the ever-widening channel of water, so they had to retreat from the land they came from. Those on the side towards the sun watched their friends retreat, then saddened by the insurpassable gulf between them, they took flight. Now look, they're sad. Some family members had to turn around because of this horn. Well, they're going to drown too because the ice is crumbling under their feet. So they took flight in pursuit of the sun and moved into the east, into the new land. Never have these people, the Tistas, the Cheney, forgotten the story. Horn in the ice. Alright, so that's the story. Soul Mongol lapse, and it goes over all kinds of stuff, man. Says the Yugur are a Paleo-Siberian tribe, mainly found between Kola and Indegarka rivers and occupied in hunting and fishing. They are very short. Yellow or brown skin complexion, dark eyes, dark hair, scanty beards. And they are fastly dying out, especially since the advance westwards of the Truckee had lessened the number of wild reindeer. That was in 1943. So I mean, alright, so I think that's gonna be it. Yeah. There's not much more to say about this. I want you to understand. You are a Negro, and they do not accept you into Indian tribes because you are not of their blood. Now, they do accept some Negroes into Indian tribes because, maybe they're of their blood. Again, out of the number of Canaanite tribes, I believe there are 11. I cannot tell you an exact number of how many of those are dark skin and Afro hair. I truly can't. All we can do is research until we find the truth. Now, aside from that, none of these other Canaanites look like you. Soon, we'll be able to write down each name of the Canaanite and clip a little picture next to the Canaanite as a description, a visual description of what they look like. I'm proud of that. To be able to depict who someone is from history. There is something on here that I skipped where it explains that the Canaanites' closest relatives are the Greeks and Romans. I found that very interesting because the Bible doesn't say anything far from that. In fact, the Bible says something very close, and this is why Abraham told his children not to go into the Canaanites for marriage. This is why he warned them. Very specifically. He didn't say, don't marry the Gentiles. He said, don't marry the Canaanites. Now, this next part that I'm going to say is kind of touchy, but it must be said. I'm not a racist. I'm not promoting racism. All I'm doing is telling you who's who. Now, the Mexican is of Latin descent. The Mexican tests their blood. Their blood comes back as European. They are the sons of the Spaniards and Portuguese that came and raped into us and raped into the Canaanite. Now, listen very closely. How is Amalek created? The thinking cap should be on right now. Amalek is created by a handmaid, not a wife. He is not considered a legitimate heir.
Now I want you to think about how the Mexicans are treated. Now, if people want to give me a hard time, I know saying this is not racist, this is not prejudiced, it does not wipe out people's thoughts about the reality of what this statement means. What it means is they're not related to you, first off. They're European blood. Secondly, it means if they're created the same way Amalek is created, they are the modern version of Amalek. Now, if anybody has a problem with those comments, prove me wrong with the scripture. Or just prove me wrong. Being proven wrong is wonderful. It's good to have flaws in your ego. Now, we all want the truth. So I'm going to say this. Where are Mexicans in 1200? Where are Mexicans in the 1100s? I'm not saying this to be rude. They don't exist. Canaanite tribes exist, and Israelite tribes exist. The Mexicans aren't created or spawned into existence until Spaniards come over here. Now look, this isn't talking about a couple of kids that were raped into existence. Excuse the term, it's reality. This is talking about a nation of people created through a caste system, purposely. So when I bring up the idea of Amalek's recreation or rebirth, it's not just some babbly talky talk. There is a science to it based on the actions that were done. Spain stole by the sword and took everything back home. They took the riches. Esau's blessing is to take the riches of the world by the sword. To what? Take it to his own breadbasket. That's what Spaniards did. Very few Spaniards stayed and intermingled. Portuguese, on the other hand, more Portuguese stayed and intermingled than the Spaniards did. So, those are the attributes of Edom. When you look at Zepho, Zepho's land is from Italy all the way over to Portugal. Usually it's verbally says it ends in Spain, but it goes to Portugal because Spain and Portugal are brothers. On the other side of Italy, you have Turkey. Turkey are the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, the mighty men of Timan. It states O Timan in Obadiah. O Timan is Timan, Ottoman Empire. It's a different empire than the Byzantine, still same bloodline. Not same ruling class, same bloodlines. You know, so when Esau's children go into the handmaid, that is the production of Amalek. So you have the Cane River, you have the Canada. All these names reflect Canaan. You already understand that there are 500 tribes of these types of Indians. This is aside from the 12 tribes. When they bring up 500 tribes of Indians, I don't think they talk about the Aztec or the Mayan. Don't quote me on that one. I've not sat through the 500 Nations videos. Alright. Aside from that, I do want you to think about the Aztec and the Mayan, especially the Aztec. I don't think the Mayan are historically known for what they call sacrifices. Alright? Now, the way the Mayans are the Aztec are depicted as sacrificing, I couldn't tell you if that's how it actually happens. When we look at videos of the Aztec sacrificing out in the desert, that desert has red rock. When blood covers that red rock, it's a definite, distinct difference. Two different colors, two different colors. Red rock and red rock covered in blood look two different colors. When they show us those temples of the Aztec, we don't see blood stains everywhere. I find that odd. Now I know the desert isn't a place that sees a lot of rain, and the jungle is a place that sees a lot of rain. That could be the difference. I'm just saying, it's just kind of odd. The Aztec are known for sacrifices. Well, we can look at it that way, or the Aztec were known as murdering off people that were in the continent that weren't Aztec. And we could also look at it that way. The Aztec were told, along with the other tribes, to wipe these people out. You can't do it all at once, or the animals will get you. The animals will hurt you. So, to see war parties sent out periodically to snatch people up, to take them back to be sacrificed, you know, it doesn't surprise me if they take them to the top of a pyramid and say, hey, we're keeping our end of the oath, you know. But let us find the truth. Had mentioned in the movie, we see they're barreling bodies. They're chopping them up and barreling them. That's different. That's cannibalism. That's pickling meat. Now, I'm not sure about what happened and what didn't happen, because it's nothing that I've studied. It's just, you know, top of the head stuff that I know, just like top of the head stuff that you know about the subject of Aztecs and Mayans. The calendar thing's a little bit different, because I briefly studied a little bit about the temples, and they explained that the Aztec built their civilization on top of a dead civilization. The Toltec lived before the Aztec did, and the Aztec used some of their ruins to complete the Aztec temples. But the calendar that we see that's called the Aztec calendar is not the Aztec calendar. That's the Toltec calendar, and the Aztecs said that they could not make anything like that. So, just some stuff to keep in mind, aside from now knowing that the American Indians are a spread out group of people called the Canaanites. Now, again, we do not know what each set of Canaanite look like, but this gives us a good idea. Maybe we know what the Amorites look like. We can assume what the Girgashites and the other Canaanites mentioned look like, because we now have a great depiction of them. So, remember this. The biggest amount of Canaanite population is right here in the Americas. If Joshua was sent to destroy the Canaanites because they were on the Promised Land, and to be awarded the Promised Land, and to divide it amongst the Israelites, then that too would happen here. Now, if that happened here, that means, again, body of Moses is here. And again, that would mean most of the things that happen in this book is here. Now, I'll tell you very briefly. If Abraham starts in the land of Ur, and the Canaanites are already there, and he buys a cave from them, then he leaves that land and goes to Canaan, where they left. Then he starts his family, and his family grows big, and then comes back to the land of his father. We came back to the land of Abraham, and it was given to us as a possession. Starting to understand the Old Testament now. This is what nobody understands. It was a land contractual agreement. That's what the first 5 books. Abraham left his home to build a family and came back home. Well, he died. His family came back home for the inheritance. And that's what all this has to do with. Good luck on your studies. Stay safe. Stay out of jail. Stay humble to your own people. And fight white supremacy with your big black mouth.